Good evening. This is CTV News. I'm Gina Barty.
And I'm Keisha Butts. Governor Larry Hogan is calling for an end to Maryland's mask mandate. The governor is asking the Maryland State Board of Education to rescind the policy. Hogan says improving COVID-19 metrics and vaccine availability for students make the mandate unnecessary.
My thoughts is the governor's crazy. I mean, the children need masks. The children need to be protected. Yeah. You know, it's just, the masks don't provide a whole lot of protection, but some protection beats no protection.
Many of the kids have not even been vaccinated. So if there is anything flying around, they are susceptible to it. And I think we need to protect the kids.
Oregon, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Delaware are the latest states that plan to drop school masking policies.
Meantime, the state's COVID numbers indicate that key metrics are heading downward. Still, the total number of people infected with the COVID here in Prince George's since the beginning of the pandemic have surpassed 163,000. Maryland has recorded 1,100 new cases since yesterday. The county's positivity rate stands at 4.09%. 37 residents have died of the disease since yesterday. Disturbing and disappointing. That's Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich responding today to a hate incident against a local lawmaker. Elrich says council member Will Jawando was the target of a hate-filled racist verbal attack recently. He says, unfortunately, it's not the first time Jawando has faced hate attacks.
The people making these attacks ought to put their names on them. If they're so proud of what they're doing and so proud of what they think, own it. Let us know who you are. It's embarrassing, and frankly, it's disgusting. I offer my unwavering support to Will and his family and his staff, and I want to ensure the public that this incident, like all incidents of hate, will be thoroughly investigated and prosecuted by this government.
Elrich made the remarks during his weekly COVID-19 briefing.
Meantime, House Speaker Adrienne Jones says Maryland child care providers are facing a crisis. She says at the height of the pandemic, about 800 licensed centers closed their doors. Jones, Senate President Bill Ferguson, and other lawmakers announced a series of bills to improve the state of child care this afternoon. One measure would provide money to retain and hire new workers. Another would provide up to $50,000 to centers in danger of closing.
Those youngest amongst us who are between the ages of 0 and 5, it is the most important time of their lives. Their outcomes that happen in that 0 to 5 range matter more for their long-term life outcomes than any other period in their life. And that's why we're here today. We have got to make sure that Maryland's great child care system is as effective and flourishing as it was prior to the pandemic, with additional opportunities to invest.
Meantime, a Howard County man pleads guilty to felony charges related to the January 6th insurrection. 23-year-old Matthew Miller of Cooksville sprayed a fire extinguisher at police. Miller also encouraged other rioters to storm a tunnel under the U.S. Capitol. Charges against Miller included obstruction of an official proceeding and assaulting officers. He faces up to 28 years in prison.
Well, one person is dead and another is in the hospital following a shooting in Fairmont Heights. According to reports, D.C. police responded to the 5000 block of Bass Place in Southeast early this morning. A driver called 911 saying that he and another passenger were shot while at the Ebony Inn restaurant on Sheriff Road in Prince George's. The driver who made the call was shot in his lower body and is currently in the hospital. Police found the passenger dead inside the car. And you're watching CTV News. I'm Gina Barty. We'll be back in a moment.
Welcome back. Did you know debtor prison still exists in Maryland? In fact, between 2015 to 2017, Prince George's County filed about 41 body attachments in cases where defendants owed less than $300. That's according to the Maryland Consumer Rights Coalition. Now, the group is backing legislation that would ban the practice of jailing people for debt. The organization is also supporting another crucial measure that would help Marylanders.
So what this bill will do, and it's introduced, HB 322 is introduced by Delegate Leslie Lopez, it will keep a minimum of $500 in an individual's bank account. So no matter what happens, the debt collector has to leave your last $500.
The state Senate will hear the debtor prison bill on February 22nd.
Well, Marylanders could get a second chance to vote by mail under legislation before the General Assembly. A bill sponsored by Senator Cheryl Kagan includes several reforms aimed at mail-in ballots. SB 163 would also allow local board of elections to begin processing those ballots 8 days before early voting, although results couldn't be released until after polls closed on Election Day.
It says that the local board should reject a ballot if the voter failed to sign the oath on the ballot or ballot return envelope and failed to correct the omission before 10 a.m. on the day that is 10 days after the election date. Now, when we heard the introduction of this bill yesterday, we talked about how we want finality on the day of the election. So where do we come up with what's the rationale for 10 days after the election date?
It's a good question, Senator. 10 days after the election is when an election must be certified. Most elections are not super close, that getting a cured ballot from someone who might be serving our country overseas or someone who might have been traveling or in the hospital, we do give them that amount of time, and that is current law on when certification is.
Under current state law, a mail-in ballot is automatically rejected if a voter doesn't sign the oath on the envelope. Under Kagan's bill, voters could provide a signature via a digital picture message by phone or email, an online portal, or text. They could also provide it in person at their local Board of Elections office or via mail. The bill received preliminary approval and is likely to come up for a final vote later this week in the Senate.
As we reported yesterday, Rahila Ahmed has resigned from the Prince George's School Board to run for a state Senate seat. Ahmed is running for the District 23 seat currently occupied by Senator Ron Watson, who is also a former school board member. She plans to run on a progressive platform to reform healthcare, immigration, criminal justice, and democracy. Also among her top priorities, reforming education.
So for me, I've had a history on this board of advocating for the needs of students at the margins. And those are the things that I would like to bring forward in Annapolis. Things like improving academic achievement for our immigrant students through native language instruction. Things like creating inclusive environments for our LGBTQ youth in the county. Things like acknowledging Indigenous land in our schools. Those are the things that I think build a sense of inclusion, build a sense of safety in schools, and make conducive learning environments for children.
Ahmed says she also plans to actively recruit and train people to understand what it means to run a grassroots campaign. In other news, police arrest 4 armed robbers in connection with the Buoy incident. All of them are teenage boys. The violent crime happened Tuesday near the Buoy Senior Center on the 14,900 block of Health Center Drive. Investigators say the teens ages 15 to 17 emerged from a stolen car brandishing guns. They say the thieves stole the victim's car keys, but then the 38-year-old victim pulled out his own handgun and shot one of the robbers. The 17-year-old who was shot was arrested after walking into a nearby health clinic for treatment. A 15-year-old was also picked up at the scene. 2 others, a 17 and 16-year-old, fled in a getaway car but were nabbed by police a short while later.
These individuals are dangerous people, as evident by their actions. I believe that this is probably part of a larger trend that we're seeing in the area and around the region, especially as it pertains to juvenile crime at the moment. Unfortunately, I don't have all the answers as to how and the whys and the what fors. But when you look at an overarching pattern that we're seeing in the region, it does seem to have more violent crimes being committed by juveniles.
All 4 face attempted carjacking and robbery charges. Police say the 17-year-old suffered non-life-threatening injuries.
Well, he's only 18 years old, but he could spend a huge chunk of his life behind bars. Nicola Sanders of Buoy has been charged with murdering 24-year-old Eugene Gray, also of Buoy. Police were called to Empress Way on January 9th for the report of a shooting. When they arrived, they discovered Gray on the ground suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say the 2 knew each other. The motive remains under investigation. And we'll be back with more news in a moment. Stay tuned.
A free 3-minute online chat can give us the personalized tips we need. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
Thank you for staying with us. A Landover man is in custody for allegedly shooting his girlfriend to death. 31-year-old Marcus Mitchell is being held without bond and charged with murder. The victim is 29-year-old Remy Howell. Investigators say Mitchell drove a car into the parking lot of Parkview Baptist Church in Landover. They say shortly after Howell got out of a car, Mitchell shot her. Police say a person at the church discovered the victim's body in a wooded area near the church 2 days later. A state delegate is sponsoring a bill that she says will make it easier for parents and students to access school library catalogs online. Republican Delegate Brenda Sham of Washington County is the lead sponsor of House Bill 196. The bill would require each public school to provide a copy of the school's library catalog to the County Board of Education before August 1st. The delegate also says her bill would require that schools provide a link accessible before September 15th.
I think just in the nature and the climate that we're in, I can hear what they're saying as far as censoring books or attempting to censor books. That is certainly not my intent, to censor books and library books or to ban books. That is not the intent of the bill. Again, the intent is just for the child at home, the student at home, and the parent to have quicker access to what the contents of that school library entails, as compared to going onto the website, clicking around, clicking in the wrong place, can't quite find the information that they're seeking.
The bill is now in committee. The Maryland Library Association and the Maryland Association of Public Library Administrators are opposing the measure.
Well, it's called the Prince George's Plan, an effort to create a locally controlled recreation authority. The group behind the effort consists of parents, coaches, and many others. It also includes the county's top leader. Angela Alsop-Brooks recently spoke before the Prince George's delegation about a late filed bill that would allow the county to establish its own sports, recreation, and venue authority.
The new recreation authority would exist under state and county law and will have an executive director who answers to a board of county residents. Like other authorities, the executive director and the board will be nominated by the county executive and approved by the county council.
What this bill is going to do is grant Prince George's County the freedom to establish its own independent sports, recreation, and venue authority, just as Montgomery County did in 1953. And then we will clarify that there will be no reduction of any kind in salaries, pay scales, benefits, pensions, or collective bargaining for any employee that's transferred to this new organization.
The measure would also create a blue ribbon work group. It would be tasked with studying and making recommendations for transferring youth sports, arts, and recreation from the Park and Planning Commission to a county recreation authority. Meantime, local rail and bus services will unlikely return to pre-pandemic levels. That's according to Metro officials. Testifying on Capitol Hill yesterday, officials said with more and more people teleworking, ridership and revenues are down significantly. Metro is projecting a $500 million budget shortfall next summer. And let's get a quick check on our 3-day weather forecast. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 33. Friday, sunny skies with a high near 58. That sounds a little better. Saturday, partly sunny with a daytime temps high near 58 degrees, Evening temps drop to a low 30 with a chance of a wintry mix. Sunday, partly sunny with a chance of snow before the afternoon and a high near 37.
And now for the community calendar. Are you prepared for earthquakes, terrorist attacks, or power outages? The city of Mount Rainier is looking for volunteers to join the Community Emergency Response Team, also known as CERT. Residents will train with professional emergency service personnel and learn about disaster preparedness. For more information, visit mountrainiermd.org. And that wraps up our CTV News Update. I'm Keisha Butts.
And I'm Gina Barti. Thanks for joining us.